The difference between transformation and stagnation isn't knowledge, it's choice. Every day, thousands of people seek healing while unconsciously sabotaging their own growth. Why? Because there's a hidden power in our wounds that we're reluctant to surrender. Imagine standing in a multi-story building where each floor represents a level of consciousness. Most of us remain stuck on the ground floor, using our pain as currency to manipulate others and avoid the intimidating journey upward. I discovered this pattern not just in my clients, but in myself during my years of studying why people don't heal, despite their claimed desires to do so. Let me share something that shocked me deeply when I first began teaching about healing. I naively assumed everyone wanted to heal, that everyone would do anything to become whole. Why wouldn't they? The reality I discovered was quite the opposite. It wasn't until I realized that I wasn't dealing with health, I was dealing with power, that everything began to make sense. Step into power. Today, I'm introducing the Power Framework for Conscious Ascension, a pathway that will transform how you understand your resistance to growth and provide practical steps to break through to higher levels of consciousness. P, power of conscious choice. O, overcoming the wound identity. W, witnessing your saboteur. E, establishing self-faith. R, receiving inner guidance. This framework isn't just theoretical, it's a practical roadmap for moving through the levels of consciousness that many spiritually inclined people talk about, but few actually navigate successfully. Detailed breakdown. 1. Power of conscious choice from unconscious reaction to conscious creation. The most fundamental shift in your spiritual journey begins with recognizing that you are choosing every behavior, every reaction, every emotion you express. This is both empowering and terrifying. When you come home after a difficult day and snap at your partner or children, there's a part of you that believes you're entitled to that behavior because of what you've endured. I've had a bad day becomes the justification for treating others poorly. But the truth? This is a choice, a conscious manipulation using your wounds as the weapon. The awakening begins when you realize how powerful your choice really is. You're choosing to do what you're doing in that moment, and you can choose something else. You can choose a different level of power. This realization can be uncomfortable because it removes all excuses and places responsibility squarely in your hands. This can hit hard. We've been conditioned by our own shame and societal pressure to blame ourselves and blaming others of our circumstances, which essentially is illusion, and it ends with creating elaborate stories about why we can't move forward. The moment I admitted I was choosing my reactions, that I could choose differently, was both gratifying and liberating. You have had this control all along, which was both empowering and embarrassing to realize. This conscious choice is the foundation of all spiritual growth. Without it, you remain trapped in the victim narrative, never ascending to higher levels of awareness. 2. Overcoming the wound identity. From wound-based manipulation to authentic empowerment. Here's a challenging truth. There's a lot of power in being wounded. Being able to use your wounds to control other people is remarkably effective. When someone questions your behavior and you respond with your pain story, they often back down and may even apologize to you despite being on the receiving end of your behavior. The decision to recognize, I use my wounds all the time, and I'm not really wounded, but I'm wearing my wounds, is monumental. You've become what I call a woundologist, someone who has built an identity around their injuries. You could heal, you could let go, but you're choosing not to. Here's the cost. To maintain a wounded psyche, you will lose respect for yourself because deep down, you know what you're doing. To avoid this self-loathing, you target someone as the reason for your wounds. You say, I just can't get over what they did to me. And then add, but I'm working on forgiveness, the oldest story in the book. Instead of admitting, I'm vengeful and don't want to mature, you create an external focus for your pain. This keeps you locked in the narcissistic phase of development, where everything revolves around your wounds. The truth about healing is that it requires radical honesty. You cannot heal if you're not honest with yourself about what you're healing and why you might be resisting that healing. Whether you're dealing with depression, anxiety, or past trauma, this level of honesty is non-negotiable. I've seen countless individuals transformed when they finally admitted they weren't interested in healing yet, they were still using their wounds as tools. This admission, paradoxically, was their first step toward genuine healing. 3. Witnessing your saboteur from unconscious sabotage to conscious awareness. As you begin ascending from the concrete level of consciousness to your inner self, you'll encounter what I call the saboteur. This inner force will create obstacles to your growth because the prospect of empowerment is, counterintuitively, terrifying. Getting from the lower level of consciousness to the higher can take years, precisely because the saboteur is so effective. You'll have experiences of getting an appetite for higher consciousness, feeling drawn to your higher self, and then suddenly acting out in ways that bring you back down to the concrete level. Why? Because you're terrified that if you start to see your life more symbolically, more impersonally, more archetypally, your wounds won't matter anymore. You fear that you won't matter. The you from the lower level feels threatened by the expanded perspective of the higher level. This is why people think forgiveness means telling someone, my hurt doesn't matter. But the real question is, how do you want your hurt to matter? In the book of long stories, in the book of wounds? Where exactly do you want it to go? These experiences feel like what makes you unique or special, and so you cling to them rather than ascending to your deeper power. I remember deciding to meditate daily as part of my own journey. My saboteur would show up like clockwork with reasonable excuses. Too tired, too busy, I'll do double tomorrow. Recognizing this pattern as sabotage rather than legitimate reasoning was a breakthrough. I began saying aloud, I see you, saboteur, whenever these thoughts arose. Your inner self becomes a battleground because you've activated a higher part of your consciousness that craves growth while simultaneously sabotaging that growth. Recognizing and naming this pattern is crucial to moving beyond it. 4. Establishing self-safe from external validation to internal trust. It has been my experience that most people can tell me with absolute clarity what they do not have faith in, but they cannot tell me what they do have faith in. This is a profound spiritual crisis of our time, perhaps the first time in human history when so many collectively doubt the existence of something greater than themselves. But faith doesn't begin with the cosmos, it begins with you having faith in yourself. You need to know that if you say something to yourself, you'll keep your word. This is where the journey to higher consciousness becomes practical. Start small. If your intuition tells you to walk more for your health, make an agreement with yourself. I will walk 15 minutes a day. I can guarantee that your saboteur will appear, telling you to skip today and do it tomorrow. This is your opportunity to recognize the saboteur and push through. When you keep these small promises to yourself day after day, something remarkable happens. You develop genuine self-respect and self-esteem. For many, it's the first time they've experienced what it feels like to give their word and keep it. This is the foundation of authentic faith. Narcissism, interestingly, stems from lack of self-respect. When you don't respect yourself, you demand respect through extreme behaviors from others. But once you develop true self-respect, you care less about external validation because you're beginning to have internal power you've never experienced before. 5. Receiving inner guidance from external direction to internal navigation. The final component of the power framework is learning to receive and trust your inner guidance. We are designed with an intuitive system that operates 24/7, but most of us have been taught to ignore it in favor of external authorities. The way our inner system works is that the more you retreat to your interior, the less you depend on the outside, and the more you depend on your inside, the clearer the guidance becomes. The external world is full of distractions. When you ask people on the outside for counsel, you do it because you're frightened or confused. It's always when you don't have faith in yourself or in what's happening. As you build faith in yourself through keeping small promises, you'll begin to notice intuitive hits in various situations. These moments become your first test flights in trusting your inner guidance. Because you've developed self-trust in smaller matters, you'll have the confidence to follow your intuition in larger ones. This inner guidance doesn't operate like a cosmic vending machine, delivering whatever you request. The humility of true spiritual power is recognizing that you don't get to tell the universe what to do. You're a grain of sand on the ocean shore. You don't instruct the ocean. The proper stance is, I'm here. You must have a job for me. Keep me from being fussy. Heaven doesn't answer stupid and doesn't compensate for carelessness. We're designed with a brain, hands, reason, and choice, specifically so we can utilize our own power. But we're also templated with vision, ambition, and talent urges to create and improve that are uniquely human. I've learned to pray differently as my relationship with guidance has evolved. From the moment I say a prayer, I believe that everything that happens is participating in the answer. This mindset completely transforms how I experience life's events, removing nothing from the realm of spiritual significance. I'd love to support the unconscious contracts that you may be holding and aren't aware of that makes up what we just discussed, your power and the feeling of lack thereof. I've created an on-demand reading called the Intuitive One-of-a-Kind Blueprint. It helps unlock your purpose, strengths, and challenges with a personalized audio journey, 6-page report, and companion guide. I merge astrology and human design to create a 12-month roadmap for strategic alignment and intuitive living. One small step at a time is all it takes. It's the power of love versus love of power. Sending you love.